So now I'm going to show you how to start making your Elizabethan ruff. So I've already cut out, and from a piece of cotton, a rectangle that is 45 centimetres in length and 14 centimetres in width. And as you'll see, I've just marked out the 1 centimetre seam allowance in from the edge of the fabric. So now I can start pinning this together. And what I'll do is I will use the lines on each side to match it up. So a good starting point is going for the corner and finding the corner on the other side. And then you know that they should be in alignment then. So I can continue along this, but before I forget, I'm going to mark somewhere along the middle, just a little point, right there, and I'm going to measure 5 centimetres from there and mark that point. This indicates where I will finish sewing and start sewing, so that I leave a little opening in the middle, which once I've sewn it all, I can pull through that hole and then hand stitch that together. So I'll go and start pinning that now. Okay, so now that I've sewn along the seam, I'm going to pull through the opening that I had in the centre. Okay, and then you should see that the seam allowance that you had will naturally fold within. And what you're going to do is, with a needle and thread, you're going to do a slip stitch to close that opening up. Okay, so now that I've sewn the hooks and bars into place on this neckband, I'm now going to quickly mark 1 centimetre intervals along the length of this, but the 3 centimetres that I marked here, that is where the intervals will end. So again, I'll be using my friction pen so that it will come off in the heat, but these marks will most likely be concealed when you attach the ruff to it, or the ribbon or organdy that you use to make the ruff. So you can see there what I'm doing. So yeah, each of these marks is where the little intervals, the 12 centimetre intervals that you've marked on the ribbon or the organdy or whatever you're using, will line up. So this is how far apart the ruff veins will be at the neckline. Okay, and then I'll do exactly the same along the bottom half, so I'll go ahead and do that. Before the next stage, you need to prepare the ribbon or organdy that you are using to make the ruff. So here I'm adding an embellishment on the outer side of the ruff, so I'm sewing the ribbon or lacy looking ribbon onto the end. If you're using organdy, this is when you'll need to do the rolled hem on all edges. So once you have your ribbon or organza band that will make the ruff, and you have added the embellishment that you want to follow the edge of the ruff shape, then you can start marking this out. Now what I've done is I've wound it all up into a sort of loose roll, and then that means that I can then gradually unwind it and mark 12 centimetres. Every 12 centimetres I can put a mark. So if you're using a light colour, what I have been using is a friction pen, which when I mark the fabric, when I apply heat, the pen will disappear, the pen colour will disappear. However, with black, it's hard to do that. So what I'm going to do is every 12 centimetres, I'm going to put a pin. And that way, as I sew along and pick it up, I can take each pin out. So I line up my 0 with the end, and I know that the first 12 centimetre interval is here, so I can mark that with a pin. Now the next 12 centimetres is here, and I will keep doing this along the whole 4 meters 82 centimeters, and I will do it on this side and on the lower side. Okay, so here you'll see I've marked the 12 intervals on both sides, 12 centimetre intervals on both sides of the 9 centimetre strip for the ruff. What I'm going to do now is I've got really long pieces of thread and I've put a really big knot in the end of it. And what I'll do is I'm going to catch just the end here, and then I'm going to catch it just where the pin is. Slightest bit, just smallest of stitches, just to catch that. And as you see already, that will start to pull it up. I'll do the same at the next one. Oops. Now the problem is you need a long thread to be able to gather it all along, but long threads are prone to knotting. So you need to be careful with how you are pulling them through, and as you see, because of my edge, it's catching the thread quite easily. So there we go. Right. So there I've got 2 already starting to be formed. What I'd advise doing is having a second needle and thread ready, and as you go along do the same on the other side. This makes it a lot easier, because if you start trying to catch this once you've already gathered up the other side, because you will definitely need to start gathering the other side as you go along, it can get very fiddly very quickly. So what I'll do is I'll probably do a few stitches on one side and then catch the other side up. So as you can already see, even with just those 3 little stitches, I've already started to get that shape that will be the end of the ruff. So I will carry on with the next 4 meters 82 centimeters, and I will come back once I've done that. I've now got all of these gathered, so as you'll see, you've started to get that figure of 8 shape forming throughout these pleats. And what I did was, when I pulled all of the threads up, I locked them in by wrapping it round my needle. So this means, like, if I want to loosen how tightly I've got the pleats later, I can just undo the take the needle out, basically, thread unravels, and I can ease it out slowly and then relock it by wrapping it around the thread. So the next step, now that that's all ready, I have my neckband, which already has all of the marks of where I need to position the veins. So each of these little figures of 8s is a vein. And what I've started doing is pinning them. So as I've got the top of one pane, I line it with the mark on the band, and I just catch the edge of there and lock it into the waistband with neckband with a pin. And I'll go along the full length of the neckband until all of the pleats are in, and then I can start stitching them in place. So I've started here already. So what you want to do is catch the neckband and catch the edge of the vein fabric. Okay, pull that through. And you want a double thread to do this. So what I've done is I've cut my thread, folded it in half once I've threaded it through the needle and knotted the end. So as you can see, I've got 2 pieces there. This just gives added strength to when you're sewing, makes the ruff a bit more durable. So then when I want to move on to the next vein, what I'm going to try and do is go under the fabric of the neckband so that I can't see any threads when I go in between the veins. I want to try and conceal the thread that I'm using, so I've sewn that one in place. I can take that pin out. And I can now catch this bit of fabric with my thread and my needle. Okay, what I'll probably do is, a couple of stitches at that point just to secure it in place, and then I'll move on to the next one. So eventually all of this top layer here will be attached to this top side of the neckband, and then I'll flip it all over and I will attach all of this side to the other side of the neckband. So when I've done all of that, I'll come back and we'll see how it's looking. I've now sewn on all of that edge to the neckband, so it's all connected. That's not going to come away. What we've now got to do is sew along all of these. Now I've still got the thread running along the top that's keeping that shape on this side. What I'll do is I'll start at one end and I'll get a pin, and about a quarter of the way down I'm going to fix a pin there. And then on the next one, making sure it's equal from the top and the bottom, I'm going to do a quarter of the way up from the bottom. So you want to alternate from top and bottom. And that's how you start to get that loop effect. Now you'll need to do that along all of the ruff. But it's worthwhile pinning it all, because then when you come to sew it, you know that it's all even. So I'll get that pinned and then I'll show you what to do next. now finished sewing all of these in place. So as you'll see, we've got all those nice figure of 8 shapes evenly distributed. And now all you have to do is join the hooks and bars. Now ideally, if you can get small plastic poppers, what you'll do is sew one on each side of the ruff so that that can then be closed up and it'll be ready to wear. So thank you for joining this video on how to make your own Elizabethan ruff. I hope you have fun doing your own, and why not share some of them with CSF? Let's see what you've been getting up to. You can try different ways of finishing off the ruff and embellishing it. For example, you can add beads, or you can add embellishment after the ruff has been constructed by hand sewing it on top as an overlay.